Good morning, folks. I'm Kathleen Truitt. I'm running for Senate Seat 6. I would like to give a brief opening statement, and I'm very grateful to the people of the Record, the extraordinary local paper that we have here in St. Johns County, for allowing this opportunity for me. Thank you. I am running for Senate Seat 6 to offer the voters greater clarity into the decision-making process in our Senate chambers in Tallahassee. I'm also focused on showing accountability to the voters about exactly where our tax dollars are spent and where they go from there. I'm neither a lobbyist nor a politician. I am your neighbor, and I care how your hard-earned money is being spent in this state. I will be representing all of the voters in our new District 6. My focus is not just who has the most lobbying dollars or those who subscribe to predetermined politics or agendas. One goal is to ensure that our tax dollars are used directly to benefit all of the people of our new District 6, which encompasses all of our St. Johns County, all of our Putnam County, all of Flagler County, and the northeast corner of Volusia, down to the Speedway. I didn't get the Speedway though. North of the Speedway. As your elected legislator, I will also hold accountable those companies or corporations that are hired to service the electorate, that show they are financially responsible and that they are fully accountable to the citizens of our state. As an educator and your legislator for District 6, I will ensure that any funding is designated for and used to fund our county's public educational programs fully. I applaud the extraordinary efforts made by our teachers in our school systems. Their efforts must be supported, not diminished. Public funding of private educational programs is not the solution to our educational budget issues. I am in this race because I was asked. I am delighted to be your candidate for Senate Seat 6, and I am in it to win it. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. You started mentioning education, so let's start talking about education. As you know, your opponent is Senator Thrasher, and one of the things he is most proud of is school reform, which includes a pay for performance. So would you share with us your views on pay for performance?
Having been in the classroom, K through 12, many subjects over a full lifetime of education, there is no competition from teacher to teacher. There has to be only cooperation. When you have pay for performance, you divide the group and the community of the electorate, of the teaching group. They need to be able to work with each other to support the needs of all of the students and their families. This is a group effort. This is not a divided me-only business blueberry type of effort. I say blueberries because we know that our children are so unique and the range is vast. Each one a special angel and each one deserving of all of the support that they could get. When I see that our public tax monies are being frittered off and siphoned off to support schools that are for profit or go to companies that have not an accountability to the public, I'm incensed. I feel very strongly about supporting our public school systems, and I thank you for that good question.
Okay, well, the second good question is on charter schools. As you may not know, but you'll know if you read the paper on Sunday, is that 3 for-profit charter schools have applied to come to St. Johns County. It's going to be part of the school board agenda next week, school board workshop. You've made it clear that you're opposed to for-profit charter schools. What about non-profit charter schools?
Non-profit charter schools, as long as they follow every single edict, every single command, every single itemized outline that every public school has to follow, would be supported. This is a choice. is just as within the public schools, there are choices from one class to another, one school to another, one major choice of interest to another. We can go to a school that has a special interest in a language, or a school that has a special interest in engineering, or a school that has a special interest in hands-on positions that will make a good paying job, like a hairdresser or an electrician. These are all valuable, but as long as that funding is fairly distributed, as long as the accountability is equal across the board, I will support that. When it doesn't go to an accountability program, when you see that there's a dead end and you can't follow that dollar through the corporations where they may have a commitment to it, the owners of that corporation rather than to the taxpayer, that's where I draw the line. Thank you.
And two of the counties that you seek to represent, Flagler and St. John's, are both growing, both have needs for new schools. They just built a new middle school or high school, I can't remember which, in Palm Coast. And St. John's County has a need to build 2 schools a year to keep up with the growth. And yet the legislature is not funding public schools. The only money they have for construction is for charter schools. Now, where do you stand on that issue?
Is it not obvious? This is a disparity. This is a terrible thing to happen to children. This is dividing private versus public. A corporation or an entity or a school that does not have accountability, again, to all of the students and all of the children and all of the families of St. John's County and Flagler County, as well as Putnam and Volusia, which too have their growth problems right now. Putnam, just having been there, their public schools are very concerned about the lack of choice for their students in their high school, because their programs have been reduced so much over the last few years. Funding is essential. Oh, we have all gone through it, have we not? Each of us has had a specific problem with the reduction of the monetary resources we have had. And this is not simply here for the public schools, it's in every entity of our lives. We must refocus the monies that will make the future into our public schools. An informed electorate makes a better democracy. If we don't have an informed school group of children, we will not have an informed electorate, and we will not have the democracy that we know it now.
The Republican legislature and the governor have argued that there need to be dramatic reforms to education because in many districts, not this district and not in Flagler, but in urban poor and rural poor districts, the schools tend to underperform. So that's the rationale behind a lot of their education reform issues, is to bring those young people up, especially in failing districts. So my question to you is, what reform would you have to address the issues that the Republicans have sought to address with merit pay and testing based evaluation systems? How would you address the issue if the Republican model is not successful in your eyes, or not the correct way to go?
Thank you for that good question. The answer is FCAT. Fortunately, there's enough counties in the state right now who have brought a lawsuit saying this is a form of punishment for the students, the teachers, and the schools. If we do not have supportive programs, such as the FCAT, we are only going to continue to diminish. We need to have the programs that will reach us into the International Baccalaureate. And this is for every child. Opportunities abound out there. We love what we have seen from the International Baccalaureate successes. We are trying to bring in some of those across the nation, and I'm sure that our superintendents in the 4 counties, including Joyner from St. John's County, are intensely interested in making the FCAT not the punishment for the child, who goes to school on those testing days as upset as possible, as capable as they may be, failing the test, having to go into classes that are not appropriate. This is just wrong. Our FCAT has got to be moved to a different position. It has to be supportive, it has to be foundational, so that it's something to build on, not something to tear down from.
As you know, FCAT is being phased out, and it's
Yes.
going to end of course exams.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about higher education for a second. Representative Proctor, who's retiring, has been very interested in that issue. And it says basically that the four-year colleges and universities in the state lack the distinction that exists in other states, and that we need to have higher caliber schools, at least in some of them, for the higher education as a way of attracting employers and developing a workforce that is sophisticated. And one of the key issues is raising the price of tuition. Where's your stance on raising the price of tuition as a way to fund the schools, colleges, and universities?
This has been a problem since you and I were tots. There has always been the dichotomy of the 12 to 17% of students across America having the opportunity to go on to higher education. But without the special support and funding for those students who are capable, who have not had the opportunity, this is a sacrilege. We must support those who can. Where? Again, accountability of our tax dollars. Making certain that all of our tax dollars have a specific follow the money trail, so we know it comes back to showing where it's being used.
Okay.
Now in higher education also, we have to go back to kindergarten. We talk about the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math. Oh, I knew this. I was a math teacher for years. But if you do not have the kids in kindergarten, preschool, doing their counting, doing their numbers, the kids in third grade understanding magnets and magnetism, the kids in sixth grade learning about the periodic table, if you don't work with all of the areas continuously, it's not a magic bullet once they graduate from high school and go to college. We have to work the system from the beginning.
Okay, the question was about tuition. Do you favor or oppose increasing the tuition for the state colleges and universities as a way of generating more revenue for them, so that they can be and expand their offerings or higher caliber staff?
I would ask them to look internally, and I know how hard they already have, to make sure to resolve those issues first before raising any tuition to any student.
Okay, would you favor raising the tuition or not? The governor's opposed to it, the legislature's in favor.
I do not favor raising tuition.
You've made a big issue in your paperwork about the environment. We have one of the cleanest bodies of water in the state, the Lower
Yes.
Kansas River. We have the Challenge River, the St. John's, and the
Yes.
other side runs through parts of the center of this district. What environmental initiatives would you seek, knowing that your opponent is a big advocate for cleaning up the St. John's River?
I support anyone and everyone who is there to support cleaning up and protecting any of our waterways. You think of tiny Palliser Creek, and you think of the delicate material that comes through where the marine land in Whitney Lab, and its vast miles of clean clam and oyster beds that we have there, plus the fishing and the shrimping and everything else that is wonderfully there, the boating, the activities we have. We have one of the most pristine areas in the full state in terms of undisturbed lands. Preserving that is absolutely important. Actually, John Micah did a really good job when he created the GTM-NER program, both in the north area and then way down again in Flagler. And this was a brilliant educational plan and preserve plan that helped to protect a lot of it. In addition to that, the people that work on groups like SACA, South Anastasia Community Association, who are there diligently ready to defend at every single move anyone who is going to encroach upon this without valid resources, researching of the consequences of the building is really important. I support that program.
Okay, have you signed or will you sign a tax pledge, no tax pledge?
I will not sign a no tax pledge. To me, when you take taxes away, you increase middle class fees, it becomes a greater burden on the middle class. Though there are 30% of all of our residents who are probably underwater and don't have the money to pay, the rest of the burden becomes increasingly on the smaller group of middle class people. It's not the 1%, it's not the richest who are becoming richer. It is the middle class who would suffer from the no tax pledge.
The growth management legislation is now law. It's one of the growth management legislation, which is now law, is one of the most controversial things that the last legislature did. What is your take on that, and what changes, if any, would you make to that?
I reviewed one small piece of it once where they were concerned about taking one little piece out of one thing and making it that was surrounded by development and converting it to development and then exchanging it for another small piece that was absolutely pristine. And that law might have prevented it, but they were able to get by it. Let's be practical. Where growth management is needed, let's use it. Where it is obstructive, let's stop it.
Basically, the controversial parts of the Growth Management Act are, one, that you don't need to show that there's a demand to build something. So there are 15,000 homes now approved in Palm Coast, and yet there's no demonstrative demand for those 15,000 homes. And the other is that it used to be that counties, adjacent counties, could object. Regional planning agencies could stop projects. Now it has to be within the county. Do you have a view on those two issues?
I do have a feeling. First of all, remember, build it and they will come.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where this comes. Same with school systems. You build a new school and the whole area becomes filled with wonderful families and their children because there's a local school for them to go. But if you recall the huge development that was proposed at 206 and 95 that was bordering St. John's and Flagler County, if we had had the current law at that time, we would have been in trouble fighting that builder who had not thought of the consequences of the drain on the full Pellicer Creek.
Okay, one of the controversial insurance issues always comes up is citizens insurance.
Yes.
The theory now is to drive the rates up so that they're actuarially sound. But obviously the people who pay those aren't too excited about it. What's your view on the conundrum with the citizens insurance, and that is right now it's not actuarially sound. You know, if we had a Hurricane Andrew that hit large areas, it would put the state in a financial bind. Yet the other side is people don't want to pay more. So where do you stand on that issue?
This is always a tricky issue. I am not an insurance person. I am fiscally conservative. I'm monetarily sound. I keep my own bills completely paid as they come in, except for the mortgage, which I'm sure is true with many people. But having this insurance is so key, and having it for those of us that cannot afford the choice of another insurance is so, it's heartening to have it. Making it fiscally responsible is not an issue that I can address personally, but I support working towards the fiscally responsible part of citizens insurance, which is the bottom line and the last choice for many of our electorate.
The key to making it fiscally sound, some would argue, is to raise the rates. So would you favor raising the rates to make it fiscally sound?
I would like to review that more thoroughly. It's an issue I have not addressed myself yet. Thank you very much.
Okay, question on the environment. One of the key issues in the state is the legislature, Republican legislature, sought to have septic tanks inspected that people have from their homes,
Yes.
and they caused such an uproar that the legislature backed off on that. And but the legislature's argument was that failing septic tanks are one of the reasons for pollution in our rivers. Controversial issue, and it puts people on both sides. Where do you stand on that? Should we resume inspecting those
Yes.
septic tanks, fields?
Yes.
Even though it's going to cost the people who have
Yes.
them a lot of money. The argument is $3,000 to $5,000 if you have a failing field.
This, I am living in a building that was built many decades ago, and so there's structural damage. And those of us that are living there will be held accountable for the cost of the structural repair. It is a sad situation when you have lived in a place for your full life and you've always done things a certain way. But life is full of those changes. And this is something where we can work it over a long period of time. It doesn't have to be a fast, immediate thing, but we can make progress towards these changes
Okay.
to save our water.
You're running against incumbent. He's already won 2 elections in this district. He's well-known, perceived to
Yes.
be in line, in some camps to be...
And well-funded.
Very well-funded. Why you? Why should people vote for you over Mr. Thrasher?
Because I am there for each voter. I am not a lobbyist. I am not yet a legislator. I have not made my money making decisions. May I please back up just a moment, please? I'd like to say 11 amendments which came out of our state legislature. Of those 11 amendments, there are many that are under the ALEC form. This is a major, enormous corporation that has gone across to all 50 states to infuse within the state legislatures types of amendments that would advantage corporations. And if you look at our 11 amendments, many of them, and all of which were voted for by Mr. Thrasher, are ALEC-generated or ALEC-related amendments. I ask you to look at that. In addition to that, 3 of the amendments are designed to use a taxing issue into a permanent constitutional issue. Taxing issues are ad valorem. They belong under the taxing plans, not under the constitutional reformation.
So is your point is because Senator Thrasher voted for those, that differentiates you?
That differentiates me very much at the very beginning, yes.
Anything else?
Lots of other things, but I want to pause right there for now. There will be more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Margot?
Hi, Ms. Marco.
Let me ask a couple, because I've got to go.
Okay, thank you.
One of the biggest issues in the state budget is Medicaid.
Yes,
Chunks up big parts of the budget.
yes,
How do you, when that big, to pay for the education you've spoken of,
yes,
to pay for the environmental improvements you've spoken of,
yes.
and yet so much of the budget is taken by federal government unfunded mandates.
That's,
How do you, what do you propose?
unfunded mandates everywhere is wrong. Mandates must be funded or accounted for in some way. Now, the House in Washington, it was the House and the Senate that approved the new medical bill. It was passed by all of the Senate, all of those folks that were a part of it across the nation. For us to refuse those dollars will add to our burden of cost without accountability. I have no idea how Governor Scott is going to manage to adjust or account for how we're going to lose those millions of dollars which are funded. If you go back to Social Security originally, They had lots and lots of money in there until it was put into the general revenue. The only reason we have a reduced revenue in the Social Security is because the money has been taken from the money in the to be used through the general revenue. This is ridiculous. It was a fully funded program, and it should be continued.
But
Yes.
if Medicaid takes that large a chunk of the state budget and then the insurance liability, how do you deal with the rest of it and still do the programs that you want to do?
One piece at a time, and follow the accountability and follow the dollar.
Let me just follow up on Ron's question. The issue with Medicaid, is that it's growing so rapidly,
Yes.
it's taking away money from education.
Yes.
I'm not here to defend or criticize Governor Scott's view on not taking the money from Washington. His argument is it's only paid for 3 or 4 years, and then after that, it falls back to the states, and that 10% of a lot of money is a lot of money,
Yes.
and which is the state's obligation, so the state just can't afford it. But for the short term, for the next 4 years, which is what this term is, what actions should the state legislature take to slow down and control the growth of Medicaid?
A very important question, a critical question, and one that I have pondered. Medicaid has to have accountability just as everything else has. As you've seen most recently with some of the changes in what gets funded and what does not get funded, there have been many groups that have been eliminated completely, that have been taking Medicare and Medicaid funds for supporting wheelchairs or things that were big business for other people. Here again, it's follow the money. Where's the accountability? I believe we can find some solutions by following the money and getting to the bottom line. But you talk about growth. We have a huge growth in Medicare needs. We have a huge growth in Medicaid needs. We have a huge growth at the same time in homeless students and children. We have a changed society, not too dissimilar from the 2 times in the 80s, the 1 time back in the 50s, which I can remember, when our whole society had to shift around to a new way of thinking. And this may be our time to attack this with a more innovative way, and I'm working on that.
Big deal in many states, a lot of legislation, a lot of controversy about immigration policies and procedures. What are your thoughts?
People are people. All people are people. Person that comes through our borders legally is a welcome person. Persons that come through illegally and have children here, those children should not be harmed. Persons that come through illegally for nefarious deeds must be punished completely. I am very strong on the support of our nation. Actually, we were the invaders at the very beginning a few hundred years ago when our fort was built. And it is wonderful to know that I will be at a celebration party Saturday night for a Cuban emigre and his wife and his son who will become citizens in Jacksonville on Saturday. I have been to Cuba. I have been to Kenya. I have been around the world. And people are people, and America is still the destination place for most.
So, those who came illegally should be shipped back?
No, we'll just work with accountability for them. Have they shown a worth? Have they shown a need? Can they go through the process? But what did we do before? We constantly seem to go through that neighbor mode that we have in the biblical tradition. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We have these people who are earnest and were in desperate straits in the country of origin. We have an opportunity for them to service us too. They are taking jobs that few, if any, would take. And they're doing it willingly and eagerly. Not too dissimilarly from those in China who are making the Apple components in the company that has just gotten an upgrade.
Okay. Margaret?
Thank you. Have a good day. Enjoy your meeting.
Right, I'll see you later.
Have fun, Ron.
Yes.
You said in your statement to us that you're running for the Senate to offer voters greater clarity,
Yes.
to offer voters greater clarity in the decision-making process.
Yes.
So how will you do that?
Because we have these 11 amendments, I would go through each one of them and show that it is not clear how they were written and what the destination of the funding or the source of the funding would be for any of them. That is really important to me, Ms. Margot.
Mhm.
Each time I go through the 11 amendments, and I am grateful to the League of Women Voters who have had several forums around the area, and hope that others will have a chance to become a part of witnessing. They are totally unbiased. They give the
Right.
yes or the no in a totally neutral area. But when I've read through them and gone through the literature, I'm just frustrated by it.
So are you working at this point because, once they're voted and approved on the ballot,
Then they're constitutional
yeah,
law.
it's a little late.
So that's why the focus right now is to be aware that there is a ballot November 6th that for several of our counties will be at least 4 pages long.
Yeah.
It will be necessary to vote from the very top of the very first page to the very bottom of the very last page. Each of these amendments, if you walk into the booth, would be overwhelming if you are just seeing them for the first time.
So you've got 2 campaigns out there at
Yes.
this point. Make people understand what you stand for
Yes,
and to make sure they understand the amendments they're voting for.
yes.
So, okay,
Thank you.
I get that. All right, let me ask you about, the state is always behind on revenue. for a
Isn't
variety
almost
of
every state?
reasons. Well, I understand that, but Florida being a tourism economy, and of course, our state funding comes off the sales tax revenue primarily. And of course, one of the things that has become an issue is the fact that online retailers
Yes.
are able to sell within the state without paying the sales tax back. So where do you stand on that issue?
That goes right back to the 1920s law that denies us state income tax. I have lived in states with state income tax. I think it's a fair and equitable thing to have, because I think the less we have of responsibility for all citizens, the more the burden comes on the middle class again. This would give a disproportionate amount of taxing. I'm not opposed to the taxing, but it would give a disproportionate amount of taxing to the middle class versus those that have more.
Okay, so you oppose the collection or oppose the,
I am opposed to using this source of revenue, though I do not disagree that this is a valuable source of revenue, and that if we have these kind of sales, as has been done in many other states, it would be valuable to the bottom line of our budget dollar.
okay. So are you in favor of any kind of tax increase?
If you say any in a broad way,
Well,
no, I would have to be specific on each
okay,
one.
let's say raising the state's general sales tax from 6% to 7%. for
No,
example.
because again, the sales tax will already negatively affect disproportionately those that are underserved, underpaid, have no health dollars, have little or no, they have the necessities of what they need, and every single penny of that taxing is critical for them. They need it so much more. It is an upside down system where
Yeah.
those that have the least are paying the most.
So where does the state go for more revenue for education, for example.
Perhaps we should look very much at the larger businesses, the corporations who have gained income from our own state's taxes, but don't show accountability for that tax money being returned to us as a benefit to our state.
Right?
I want to ask you this question. I moderated a series of forums with League of Women Voters put on questions for candidates. And in researching those questions, I went around and spoke to a lot of elected and officials in the county, as well as staffers for various agencies in the counties. And what surprised me, which I had not expected to hear, but surprised me, because they're all Republicans, you're a rare breed, there aren't many Democrats around. What surprised me is how angry they were with the state legislature. They felt that the state legislature is implementing policies that hurt them. They mentioned Amendment 4, for example. Teacher pay for performance, they think is bad for the district. They detest charter schools. They detest many of the growth management changes. What would you do to, if you were elected, address that issue where there's a perception of it, that our legislatures go there and implement policies that in the minds, perceptions of these people don't help St. John's County?
Thank you for that question, Pete. This is a critical question. I worked with people, with families, not against them. I wasn't there in my public schools or all the other community things that I'm doing with the community chorus, with the St. Augustine Art Association, with the Whitney Lab, with all of the other volunteer organizations that I'm a part of. I am there to work with people to find a coalition, find a path where we can find a solution to a problem, and I will work toward that.
Okay, well, we're at the end now. You get a chance to do what Ron says, that it's hard for anyone to do with a group of journalists, and that is you get the last word. We thank you very much for coming, and you can now make your case to the people watching about why they should vote for you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Margot, thank you, Pete, and to
Thank you,
our
Ron.
absent, thank you very much. This has been a delight. Hi voters, this is Kathleen Truitt, back facing you once again. I am a retired teacher, mostly math, science, English, K through 12, and a bit of college. I am a civic activist and I'm a community volunteer. How I got here? Through 50 years, I have knocked, walked, talked, licked, stuffed, phoned, emailed for many other candidates. I have been there and I have done that. I have also researched issues before I have voted, and I have voted. I am asking for your vote on November 6th. What I can do for you, what can I do for you? I will share my understanding of the 11 amendments, as we have been discussing, that have been fully created by our current legislature. Each of you needs to be fully aware of the confusion of the language which could misdirect a yes or a no vote. I'm asking you to vote the full ticket from the very top of the first page for president, all the way down to the bottom of the last page, to retain the 3 judges that are being targeted by an extreme group of people. These are good folks. I am here for the citizens of Florida, not the lobbyists, nor the legislators who have often shown no accountability for their actions. I will continue to make actions that will protect our waterways and our beautiful natural areas. I will support employment gains and enterprising businesses. I will work towards full funding of our public schools, and I will work for you. I am tried and trued. Please vote for me November 6th. Thank you.